Hey, it's James here from Guitarist.com, and today I'm going to show you the 5 most common mistakes that people make when learning chord switching. And I wouldn't expect one of my students to implement these all at once. Just pick whichever one you feel will have the most impact on your playing, work on it, and then start the next one. Anyways, let's dive into the first mistake that I see, and that is trying to learn too many chords at once. I know it's tempting. You look up your favorite song, maybe it's Hotel California, and it has like 8 different chord shapes. A minor, E, G, D, F, C, D minor, E7. And those are what people call basic chords or beginner chords even. And maybe the tab says, this is a beginner level 1 song. It has like 1 star out of 5. But the truth is, you're much better off mastering simpler 2 and 3 chord songs. Because the problem is, when you have that 8 chord song, you focus so much on memorizing chord shapes and you miss out on all those other things that make music sound like music, like rhythm, tone, touch, feel, groove. I would go as far as to say the person who starts with a simple 2 chord song and they actually learn how to play it, they make it sound good. Then they add 1 chord, they learn a 3 chord song, and they build up. They're gonna be playing Hotel California or whatever song that has 8 or 9 chords way sooner than the person who starts with that song and works on it every day. The second mistake that I see all the time is not taking advantage of guide fingers or pivot fingers. Certain chords share the same finger in the exact same spot, like G and D, for instance. And when you leave that finger down as you're switching, it does more than simply provide you with a shortcut for chord switching. What it really does is it gets you used to not looking at your fingers as you're playing, to developing that ability to feel where your fingers are. Imagine you're trying to write on a piece of paper using a pencil. You can even try this right now. You put your hand down so it's touching the paper, and then you're able to write down your message. But now imagine that you can't touch your hand to the page. Maybe it's covered in ink or something. You can only touch the pen to the page. It can be decent, but it's not going to be as good as when you're going off of that anchor point. And that is the skill that you develop by using pivot fingers. And by the way, I have a free ebook that outlines all of the chord switching shortcuts for literally every basic chord shape, as well as all the strumming and other fundamental guitar things that you'll need. You can get your free copy using the link down below, or just visit my website at goodguitarist.com. Either way, this brings us to our next point. What if you can't use a guide finger? Well, that might cause our next mistake, which is lifting all your fingers at once and lifting them too high when you're switching chords. Maybe you're switching from G to A minor. They don't share any of the same spots. You can't pivot off of any. So what a lot of beginners do is they'll lift their fingers all the way and then try to put them down on A minor, and it's just not as easy to make that accurate. But to fix this, what we can do is we can make a plan of action, or what I call an order of operations. So for instance, G to A minor, we lift our fingers a little bit, and then we get our index where it needs to be. Now we have our pivot finger, and we can simply put down our remaining fingers where they need to be on the A minor chord. And we just get used to that, going 1, 2. Do that a few times, 1, 2. And eventually, you're able to kind of do it in a controlled way instead of big lift and pray you hit the right spot. The next chord switching problem has to do with switching too late or letting the chords interrupt your strumming. And I'll be frank here, at the end of the day, keeping the rhythm going is 10 times more important than making perfect chord shapes. I'm just going to demonstrate. There is a house in New Orleans. It's painful. Imagine watching somebody play a song like that compared to there is a house in New Orleans. I didn't nail any of the switches. I took forever to get to them, but I kept the strumming going. The song kept going. Now, while it's one thing to, watch somebody do it, in order to actually get this to be one of your habits, you want to incorporate rhythm into your switching practice. I do the chord switching game, which is where we keep track of how much time we spend strumming and how much time we spend switching. And then we do more strumming, less switching time, and eventually you're just strumming the whole time. Like 1, 2, switch, switch, 1, 2, switch, switch, 1. You can do that with the chords of a song, and you're tapping your foot, you're being rhythmic. It really incorporates rhythm into chords. Because ultimately, the goal is to hit your next chord so that it's right on beat 1. But if you screw it up, still make that strum, still keep the rhythm going, and correct the chord as you go, hopefully by beat 2, and that will lead to a better sound. Even pros miss their chords, but they know how to correct course. They don't stop the song, they keep going, and nobody notices. Now, finally, the last common mistake that I want to address is memorizing mistakes. And this comes from practicing too fast. You could take everything that we talked about so far, you could understand it, but if you don't take your time to internalize it, it's not going to have any long-lasting effect. And that kind of applies to every bit of the way that you learn guitar. So if you take one piece of advice seriously out of this whole thing, it's to simply slow down. Even if you feel like you're beyond something, approach everything like a beginner. Have that fresh mindset, and you might notice something that you would have otherwise overlooked. Otherwise, that's it for today's lesson. Don't forget to grab your copy of my free ebook at goodguitarist.com. And while you're there, you might also be interested in a 10-day free trial for my all-access pass. You get all my courses, worksheets, full song play-alongs, and even the ability to ask me questions directly. There's more information below or on my website. Now have a fun time practicing, and I'll see you soon.